So you've managed to find us and wondering what we're all about. Well, this is the Waffle Hour on Waffle Wednesdays with me, Bernard and John. We're best mates for about 20 years and we waffle on about all kinds of subjects. Sheep, gin, New Year's resolutions and everything in between. So make sure you come along every Wednesday morning, 7:02 a.m. We'll help you get through your hump day. Okay, here we go. We're back again. Welcome back to the John Bernard Waffle Hour on Waffle Wednesdays. J-Dog, what's the story? How are you?
How's it going, guys? How's it going, Bert? All good.
How are you over the last week, alright?
All good. Yeah, good weekend. Good quiet weekend. No bother at all.
Now we're going to bring in a random voice now. That our special guest this week, okay? So, Leeanne, you're allowed to talk whenever you want. You can
Hello.
You can just cut across us, it's okay.
Hello, how are you? Hi, John.
Leeanne, how's it going?
Things?
Good. How's life over west?
Podcast. Down south, you mean?
Down south, yeah.
South, yes.
It's Cork, yeah.
Well, we're battening down
to
Storm Barra tomorrow.
Hang on now. On that subject, I think it's a government conspiracy, the storm. I just think it doesn't exist. Like, what is about this closing the schools? How is closing the school going to help with a storm?
You're just raging because the kids have been home for other things, for COVID and everything else, and now you have to have them.
Yeah, no,
tomorrow.
It's fake. I'm bringing the kids for hiking in the morning in Kerry, no matter what the government say.
How are you going to get vaccinated against the storm?
I know.
I tell you, I
it's
just don't understand.
Another, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm guaranteed there's going to be another storm now in a couple of weeks. Call it a different name. It'll be ridiculous.
Yeah, well, it'll be on to see then.
Yeah.
You were saying, Leeanne, about what you think of our first five.
I think they're doing very well, like really well. I was kind of just making the comment that Bertie, you are probably the louder of the two, in terms of like on the audio, on the old Bluetooth in the car. Yeah. But no, very very good. Some of the stuff you were talking about the fucking Renault 19. Sorry, I'm at a cursing podcast.
Yeah.
But the Renault 19, oh my God, that car. Jesus. It's been around the block. But no, it's absolutely brilliant. Fair play. I think it's a good thing you're doing. And yeah, it's brilliant.
Hopefully. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
that
keeps me. It keeps. The point is, like, it keeps myself and Bertie kind of talking and keeping us going weekly, you know.
Yeah, especially with COVID.
Keeps us entertained.
Aren't able to meet up and all. It's brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah.
Reminds me of cups of tea back in the beach house, lads.
Oh, that hasn't come up on the podcast yet.
Maybe that's a good thing.
That'll be a good one.
We are doing this over Zoom this week, so hopefully the audio is going to be all right. So we're not on our fancy usual mics, and we're not actually together. This is the first one that me and Johnny. Well, Johnny missed episode 2, was it? Episode 3?
Episode 3, I think it was. Yeah.
Episode 3. And so this will be the first one that we've done that we're not actually in the same room. So we'll see how it goes.
Being COVID safe.
Yeah, that was the reason.
Yes.
We said we'd give it a try just to see in case we actually can't meet up to do them. At least we can keep them going. So if this works well on this episode, maybe we get some feedback on whether it was all right or not. And we'll see how we get on.
Yeah, well, I presume other, other podcasts do that.
They probably have fancier equipment though.
All right.
Desks and a producer behind them.
Yeah, exactly. But before we get kicked off, if anybody wants to, touch base, get in contact, the email as always is jbwafflehour@gmail.com, and you can find us on Instagram at the JB Waffle Hour podcast. So if anybody wants to follow us there, we're up to the lofty heights of mid-teens on followers. So that's interesting.
Ooh, nice.
So this week we said we'll talk about jobs we do have currently, and how we found all that, and we might give some inspirations to some younger people to go out and start working.
Yeah, and not being a PUP.
Or do the lotto.
Do the lotto. Yeah, don't depend on the lotto. Or back in horses.
Don't gamble, kids.
Yeah. So first of all, because Leeanne is new, we'll let you go first, will we? Any interesting jobs? Yeah, there you go. You can take over for the next couple of minutes.
Well, I suppose I'm working all my life since I was a teenager, and through the pub, I suppose years ago I would have started in the pub. I think I poured my first pint of Guinness when I was 13, so was early brought into the workplace.
Yeah, but you didn't. You weren't drinking that one though.
No, I wasn't. I was sure, Bertie. I'm like you, sure. Barely touch a drop. Well, mind you, in the last couple of years, I might as well be a pioneer. But I did all my drinking when I was in my 20s, and then I've gotten sensible. But no, worked in the pub, and then when I was in, fifth year leaving cert, my mother said to me, "You can't stay working in the pub forever now. You need to get a proper job." And it was either, and it was either become a guard because you're tall, or do nursing because it's a job for life.
And did you ever think about doing the guards?
No.
No,
never. I actually, do you know something? In school, I was a messer, and the only subject I liked was English. So I probably would have, if I'd have applied myself a little bit more, I should have probably went in. I would have liked to have gone into like journalism or something. But in saying that, like, I was a bit of a fool in school. So I went up then when I was 16 or 17, and I got a job in St. Joseph's in Trim. And honestly, it was probably one of my favourite jobs ever. I loved working up there.
That would have been tough. That's what you're looking after
people in the town. Yeah.
Oof.
So I went up there and I got a job in there, and me and a couple of the girls, we all became really good friends, and it was just lovely. And the residents were lovely up there, and
that is the ultimate test. Though, like working in an old folks' home or that kind of environment is the ultimate test when you're young to go whether you love that or not love it. Like if you love, if you love that, that's it.
I think it's a really good thing though to make you a nice person, to go up and spend a bit of time. Like I tell you, some of the stories that I would have heard up there of people that like were in their 90s, the amazing stories that they could tell you about the lives that they led and where they ended up and all that. So I absolutely loved it.
But the thing about working in there, do you think that is much because you had no qualifications? Was it like, is that why you enjoyed it more? Because there was no like responsibility?
Well, I suppose I was very young. Like, what was I, 17, if even? And like, I didn't take it too seriously. I was going up there to get a few pounds at the weekend to go out. But I suppose, I'm a people person. So I loved all the people. I loved a bit of crack and, you know, I remember that they used to ring. I was on a relief line. So like, because I went to college then, and so they'd ring you and they'd say, "Oh, will you come in and do a long day Saturday?" And, you know, other jobs you'd be like, "Oh, jeez, I don't want to go to work today." But like, I never used to mind going up there because you'd always come home with some lovely stories or having a bit of crack. And a couple of the girls, I'm still good friends with a couple of the girls that worked up there, even though I'm long gone. But it was probably one of my happiest jobs. And I stayed there then until I finished college. And will I keep going or will I?
Oh, no, keep going, yeah.
Yeah. Try to give it the light. This is like 2 years more.
This is great.
So, so I did my nursing then up in Dundalk.
We'll start bringing in like your old lecturers and your old employees.
Oh, God. Well, I tell you, if you met some of my old lecturers up in Dundalk, I'd say they'd be saying to themselves, "How is your one still a nurse?" Because I was a messer. Like, I didn't take life very seriously. And in hindsight, like, it's probably a good thing because I think when you get older, like, you touched on this, one of the last episodes, that, you know, you kind of hit your 30s and you're like, "Oh God, like, I'm an adult now and I have responsibilities. There's mortgages and loans." And so I really enjoyed Dundalk. I was out of college more than I was in it. I was on the beer the whole time, mystery tours and rag weeks, and we'd a ball. And many a night I would have had to ring Bertie to come and save me from some drama I got myself into. But yeah, went to Dundalk and I did my ordinary degree in intellectual disability nursing. And I suppose that wouldn't have been a job I wanted. So when I was working in St. Joseph's, I decided, sure, look, I'll do nursing, because I didn't really question it, because I just thought, well, I like people, so it's a nice job, I'll go do that. And I didn't get points.
Yeah, I was just going to say, why did you go for general?
Yeah, I didn't get points for general. So academically, I wouldn't have been very good in school. Like, I remember them saying to me, like, "Oh, go do your geography there." And I'd be like, "Why do you need to learn about a river if you want to become a nurse?" Like, sure, I never had any interest in it. And it was only when I went to do my nursing degree that I was like, "Oh, I don't mind studying this because I like it. And I like what I'm learning. I'm interested in what I'm learning." You know what I mean? So I did my degree in disability nursing, and I'll be honest, I didn't love the disability side of things. I found it a tough job. I hold my hat off to people that are still working in it, because every day was just a challenge. And
was that like a means to an end for you, because that was your like gateway into
it was kind of like, I remember Mum, because my mother's a nurse as well, as you know, and I remember Mum telling me that, like, even if you absolutely hate it, stick it out, get the qualification, and it's a ticket anywhere around the world. So at the time, that's all I was thinking about. Like, look, I'll do it and it might lead into something else. Yeah. And then, interestingly, when I finished the 4 years, all of my friends would have said she'll never work in it. But I got a lovely job in Meat Disability Services, and I worked there for a little while agency. And once I qualified, I really loved it. But then we were in a recession, and the crash came, and nobody had any money, and I was hemming and hawing about going travelling. Even though I would have said, remember that?
You went back and forward a few times over that.
Back and forth for a little while. I went the long way around. But you mentioned Gareth Keoghan about the Matchbox.
Yeah.
And I remember Casey, and she won't mind me saying this, brought me to see Gareth when he was over Lynch's. And I wouldn't have known Gareth at all. And I remember going and thinking, oh my God, I don't believe in any of this.
Yeah, just say what he was doing rather than just going.
Oh, so it was like a medium. It was like a fortune. I don't want to say fortune teller if that's the wrong word, but sorry, Gareth, if that's the wrong thing. But I went in anyway, and I was like, sure, this is like such a waste of an evening, but sure, it's a bit of crack. And he said to me, oh, I can see you travelling. And like at the time, I was like, I travel as far as Navan. Like I love Trim. Like I'd never leave, you know. And then within 6 months, I had booked my tickets to Australia. Mad. So it's just funny the way things work out, you know.
Now, so, we might pause you there just before you go to Australia. Yeah. So we've got that far, but let me and Johnny maybe catch up with you.
Do.
Yeah. Oh, so we meet at the same timeline. I get it.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
So when you left school, Johnny, you went to be a carpenter. No? Yes.
Well,
you wanted to be a carpenter.
Well, there's a few things in between that. Like when I left school.
Well, what was your first job?
My first ever job was a welder. I was a welder, working for a lad, just welding, just a part-time the weekends. And then went full-time with him then. And then just things got quiet. So I moved on to being a furniture delivery man down in Tullamore with Crinians.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Went down to Tullamore every morning, actually, with Anthony. Nice chap, great. Learned me trade of furniture then there. And then worked there for a good while. And then...
This is after school.
I think it was just it was summer holidays, basically.
Summer job.
And so I was doing the summer holidays work, and then basically when school came back around, he was like, well, do you want to... You can't keep you on, blah, blah, blah. You have to go back to school, blah, blah. I was like, oh, okay, grand. So I go back to school. Because I didn't want to be a furniture delivery man for the rest of my life. But nothing wrong with it. But...
Well, things like that are once if obviously if you own the company, but just sitting in the van delivering isn't maybe the best, is it?
But you see, when I was in school and coming up like the year before the Leaving Cert and then into the Leaving Cert, there was a huge boom in the building. So it was around the time where you're hearing of carpenters and electricians getting like $2,000 a week and all that kind of stuff.
Well, they were on serious money. They'd come in to cash their checks in the pub, and they'd be looking for $2,000 cash out of the till. It was crazy, like.
And I was looking at that going, I'm going to be a carpenter. I was looking at the you don't have to go to college. Well, you had to go to college after you signed up with someone, so you didn't need any points for Leaving Cert. So I literally went, I'm not going to study for Leaving Cert. I don't need it. I'm going to be a carpenter. So. I scraped through the Leaving Cert. I'm not a care in the world that I have because I knew I was going to be a carpenter. So basically got a carpentry job straight after the school. And I was carpenter then for a good few years. Loved it. Worked way up. Started going to the college through FOSS and everything like that. And then that was around 2010. And do you remember what happened in 2010? Big crash happened.
Boom.
Were you working, Johnny? You were working up in Leeson Street, weren't you? Remember that? You met me.
I met you for lunch one of the days. I was working in Oscar Wilde's old house.
Leeanne, I think we better just specify why Leeanne.
Oh, Leeson Street. Yeah, sorry. Nothing overrated.
I met her at like 2 a.m. in the morning on Leeson Street. She said she was just walking through. Total chance.
I was
got lost.
Yeah, I should have specified that. I walked myself.
I'm looking for that. So I was working in Oscar Wilde's old house that was being renovated into an old office complex, but they had to keep the house the same part of the plan permission. But basically, once the Celtic Tiger hit, because I was on big money back then, I was on my 4th year, I think. And basically, the boss man said, "Look, can't afford you anymore, John." I was like, "Well, I'll take a dip in wages." No, just going back to basics, just going to be myself and the other lad. I was like, okay, grand. So I got let go. And then I had no work for a while. I started working in the Station House Hotel, bar work for a while. And then couldn't get any more jobs until my sister's boyfriend at the time was the owner of Soup Value in Trim there, and he said, "Come work for me for a while if you get sorted." I was like, "Oh, thanks a lot." So I went in packing shelves with him and all that kind of stuff. And then 10 years later, I was still there. And then I was thinking, after 10 years, is this what I want to do? I was like, I have got to make a decision now, like, because retail, like manager, like in a Soup Value, that's it. You're married to the job. Your job nearly comes first, and then everything else comes second. Like for you, Leeanne, Bertie, you probably could know, like those 10 years when I was working in Soup Value, I couldn't really go out. I couldn't. It was it was purely my own choice because I was dedicated to the job. It wasn't like the boss was saying, "Don't go out tonight." I was literally just, no, I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning. And I want to get in fresh. Because
so your that job was kind of demanding and very random hours. Like Leeanne, with you and the nursing, you're on like for 4 days, and although the long days, when you're off, but like when you were in Super Valley, you could be off and then suddenly you're not off, and you have to do bits after work and stuff like that. Like it's tough, like.
Yeah, you could never switch off in a Super Valley. Even on your days off, you can thinking at home, what did I do my order right, or I'll better tip in there and fix something, or. So I had to make a decision of once the family started coming along, because I was missing birthdays, I was missing all this kind of stuff, 21sts and all that. And I was like, look, I'm not going to miss some family events. So I've got to make a decision now. And to be honest, it took me about 3 years to make that decision. I'd nearly decided I was going to leave about 3 years into it, or 3 years beforehand.
Really?
But because I just was waiting for the right time, whether I did like it or not, whether I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. But ended up leaving then, which is the best decision I've ever made, to be honest. No offense to the shop. Like I learned everything from that shop, like from how to work ethic, and all that kind of stuff. So it's got me to where I am today. So it's I'm very thankful for that.
And you were in your fourth year, but you didn't get to finish out,
Didn't get to finish because that was I was going to go back into it, but I couldn't get a job. No, like I was getting jobs, but nobody would carry on my. I had to be employed to carry on my FOSS thing.
Yeah.
And that the next boss of that carpentry company had to take on my apprenticeship and then put me through the rest of college. And nobody was willing to do that. They just wanted guys to work a week here and a week there.
Yeah.
Which I was doing. I was like working for a lad for a week. He'd say, I have nothing next week. Then I'd work with another lad for a week. I have nothing next week. So it was a rough time for anybody that was carpenter. That's why everybody got out of it back then.
You're just unfortunate that your fourth year hit the year that everything went belly up. Like.
Basically, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But sure, look, you never know where life's going to take you next.
No,
and everything happens for a reason too, I think.
Sure does.
Yeah.
I could have done now with carpentry skills though.
Well, you still use your carpentry skills, no?
Building my own house and stuff. Them. No, I was a terrible carpenter. I was terrible.
And now I wonder why they wouldn't keep you on.
Basically, I thought that after a few years, boy, I was a terrible carpenter. Anyway,
it wasn't the crash. It was just
a theory.
Good job.
It all makes sense now. It all makes sense. I must give him a ring. Ask him.
Why'd you let me go?
Yeah, it wasn't a crash.
Yeah.
What about you, Bertie? What did you do?
I would have came a couple of years after you and sure the same thing and like, oh, buildings are going well. What do you want to do? Remember your man in community school? What was his name? I used to call him Krusty, but what was his actual name? Mr. What's just can't even remember.
Mr. Krusty.
Yeah, Mr. Because he had the long hair like Krusty the Clown. So just can't actually remember his name, but sure, that's a good while ago now.
I can't remember his name. That's a shame, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So he was always like, oh, buildings, and I was like, don't want to be a carpenter, don't want to be a block layer or whatever. And he says, what about the boss man, like an engineer or whatever? So I ended up in Athlone then for about 3 years. I liked it and I didn't like it. It was tough, like.
I often wonder why you didn't stick at it sometimes.
I was just about to say, it's a shame to spend so long doing something and then not using those skills.
Yeah,
well, I remember lefty loosey, righty tighty.
That's worth your 3 years, so. But isn't it true though? Does your brain kind of start overlapping those memories now? Like you probably can't remember most of your. Like you still have that qualification, so could you walk in tomorrow and apply for one of those jobs, or would you have to go for a refresher?
Things have changed. Like things were even changing when I was in third year because they went from the British standard of regulations in the building to the European standard. So that was just coming in when I was in third year, like. So things would have changed, but it's like the things that you learn as you're going on. Like, I mean, you wouldn't know now, and like that, things change. But
well, you forget you have to be in a job and doing the job. I think to keep upskilled with it. Do you know what I mean? And that's I think that's across the board. Like
the only thing is, like, people will show me, like, if people are doing houses, like you were talking about your house and that, and then you kind of kick into a little bit of it, like, because they'll show you like plans of houses, and you'd be able to read them, or you'd know what that meant, and shorthand stuff and stuff on it. But apart from that, but I knew, like, probably halfway through the second year that it wasn't really for me, like, you know. But you just kind of have to find your groove and where you want to go. But
I think as well, it's very hard to put an old head on young shoulders.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If somebody could come to me when I was 17 and be like, "Oh my God, just cop on and like look what you could have when you're 35 if you do X, Y, and Z."
Yeah,
like, it
start saving.
Like that.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you now, if that's what one of the things was when I started doing all the fitness course and stuff. Like I felt like I was nearly 4 years behind myself, because I was thinking, why didn't you just do this straight out of school? But as you said, you're in a different space. That would have never even crossed my mind when I was in Leaving Cert.
No,
you know.
No.
But it was a good time. Met some good people down at Leeanne and stuff like that. But it gave me time to realise what you wanted to do. But I would have worked in Kilsarn for those 3 summers during school as well, and it kind of opened my eyes to, like what you were saying about being a delivery driver, Johnny. I knew I didn't want to work on a machine for the rest of my life, driving dumpers.
It's good money now.
Well, it was good money then, because that was that was before.
Oh, it's very good money now. Yeah,
I was in Kilsarn 2004, 5, and 6, I think, and you're earning like €800 or €900 a week. Like, now it was 76 every day. But it was long days. But there was some good people.
What else would you be doing, a young lad like that?
Yeah, but because I was there in the summer, you always got the shit job. So, like, you were doing the strimming out the front of the quarry, or you were sorting out fan belts.
What Kilsarn was that? The one in Dunboyne?
I was in the first year. I was in Dunboyne, and I drove the forklift and the paving. So I was loading trucks and loading all the blocks of pave and the things like that. And then the second year, I was in Clonard, and then I was in Racour. I was in Kilmeston. But you got moved around between them because you were covering when anybody was missing, like.
Oh, yeah.
And sure, I remember going, and every year you had to go and you watch the same VHS tape about safety, like. And that was it. Like, I went in there and I was 18, and I was put up on a 30-ton dump truck. I had never driven it before, and they're like, "Oh, have you ever drove a tractor?" I was going, "Yeah." The only thing is, when you're reversing this, the tractor and trailer go the opposite way to the wheel. But this will go the same way because it's an articulated dumper, like. And I was driving one of them, and I remember the first one I drove was a Paddy, because they had names on all the machines. So I drove Paddy, which was they used to call it Epoxy Moxie, because the Moxie was the make, but it wasn't like a Volvo BM like the fancy ones. And you used to be going across bumps, and when you'd land down, you just see all the dust rising up from the seat. Like, the thing was a state, like, you know. And it eventually went on fire.
They probably still have that.
No, it went on fire.
Oh,
did you set it on fire?
No, it's like the drive shaft overheated between like the back and the front, and it just went on fire. So I don't know what happened to it after that.
That
wasn't in the VHS tape, I'd say.
No.
Do not try this at home.
No, but I remember the last day I walked out of Kilsarn was I was still in Athlone, and I had a repeat exam in August. And I won't say who was working there at the time, but he was the head man in the one I was in. And I was saying, "Oh, I won't be in on Wednesday because I have a repeat exam." But it's just your job. I can't afford like such and such is missing or whatever. So yeah, but it's my college. Like, I need to go back and do my exam or whatever. And he was like, and this was Monday. He says, no, you can't. He says, if you're not going to come in on Wednesday, you may as well go home now. So I said, "Oh, right. Good luck." I got into the van and left. That was the last.
Really?
That was the last time I was
concerned.
But I only had 2 weeks left of the summer anyway. This was like 2 weeks left in August or whatever. So I was leaving anyway. But he was a bit of a dickhead. But you have those kind of people anyway.
No need for that.
No. You have some of them. And then when I was finished that, I went straight from that to the NCF course in Clough-Steeda. But the great thing about now, which is more common now, is that if you don't do a good Leaving Cert, or you don't know what you want to do, and you can't get into or afford even like DCU or UCD or anything, there's loads of like courses to do and smaller places to go, like PLC courses and little community colleges or whatever you want to call them, but to see, at least you get a taste of what you want to do, you know?
Yeah, because in fairness, who knows what they want to do with the rest of their lives?
Yeah,
like my
that's
brother's
exactly.
just finished his leaving cert, and sure, like,
to be doing the leaving cert again, and all the
well,
choices
now
you
come
have.
here.
Yeah.
I brought him in for the maths exam, and he asked me getting out of the car, have I a pen?
Legend.
Legend.
Sounds like me.
And then what's worse, he actually did a fantastic leaving cert. But
Oh,
I think
so
it was
he
just
has
because
brains.
he had that like laid back approach and be like, oh, sure, it's grand, you know, whatever. But I just think at like 16, 17, 18, like you don't even know who you are yet. You know, that kind of way. I just think you just need, so those courses are great, the PLCs. And actually, when I was doing my leaving cert, it was like unheard of that you took a gap year, really. Like, you know, maybe 2 girls in the year didn't go straight to college or whatever. And like, I actually think a gap year is a really good idea, or like a year to just go to work. And
what did you do for a gap year?
I didn't take a gap year. I went to college.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, but what I'm saying is I actually think it'd be a really good idea.
You take, yeah,
I finished my leaving cert at 16. I was very young. I didn't get I got my results and I was just turned 17. So like, you don't have a clue.
Well, there's one thing I regret, definitely from leaving school to now is I never travelled. I never travelled the world.
Did you not?
I did nothing. The first time I even left the country
was when Agneta made you.
When Agneta made me go to Lithuania, yeah. Basically when I met my wife. That's
really?
my first time I kind of travelled, yeah. I didn't take holidays. When I was with Super Volley,
did you just never have the growth for it? Did you just never have the desire to go, or did...
No, I never took holidays with the job. I always joked, like everybody was, back when I was starting in Super Value, everybody was going to college, into Australia or Canada. So I always joked, like I was going mental and Trim, watching everybody go to Australia or go to Canada. I had no friends left. Literally everybody went. So what I did, I went through a phase of, got to go somewhere. So I moved to Navan for 2 years. Remember that?
That's right, I remember that.
So I was joking, like Navan is my Australia.
Yeah.
And I treated Navan as if it was a different country. I went mental there. I was living in a penthouse apartment up the road from the Palace. I swear to God, I was in the Palace more than the barman. It was me and another lad. We were living in Navan and we were in the pub every single night.
But your when I went to Australia, there was more people in Australia from Trim than there was. Like it was like going down to Market Street.
The stories I heard, people would be like walking down the street of a busy city.
How are you?
Tony, how's it going?
Crazy, like.
Yeah.
You can kick off there about Australia if you want. Now that you've mentioned it.
Well, sure. Look, it was a great spot. I wouldn't have said I really wanted to go to Australia. It kind of work. I just didn't really know what I was doing with my life. And I was like, oh, sure, everybody's going to Australia. And one of the girls actually, Sophie, you know, Sophie Tobin. So Sophie would be a good friend of mine. And she had gone over to Oz and she worked with me. So she's a nurse as well. And we would work together in St. Joseph's. And she was like, oh my God, like the money over here is really good, la, la, la. So I'd kind of said, oh, sure, well, I just go over there and have the crack for a year. Like, if I last, I remember saying to you, Bertie, I'd probably be home in 6 weeks. Like
you're full sure.
I remember saying, I know everybody was like, I remember saying, okay, if I get there, like, and I hate it, I'll just say that something happened and I had to come home. Like, so bad. So actually, funny story. So when I flew over, so, you know, you fly now, I think you can do like a direct flight from London to Perth, but at the time it was Dublin, Dubai, or Dublin, Abu Dhabi. I can't remember now. And then Abu Dhabi, Perth. And I remember getting to Dubai. It was Dubai airport. Anybody who's been there, huge airport. And it was like, you got off when I got off the plane, I had like a 3-hour stopover. And I remember being like, Jesus Christ, what am I doing? Like, on my own, nobody.
You're on your own?
Really Oh, I went on my own, yeah. And now I had friends over there, but like, I made the flight on my own. And it was a really big, I was very nervous. And I remember getting off the plane in Dubai and I was like walking around and you had to find like, there was a train, you had to get a train to get to your gate. And then there was like, the equivalent of the whole of Dublin airport, like of a runway kind of to get to your other gate. And then you had to get another bus to get, anyway, it was a disaster. Eventually managed to get to the gate of the, you know, the next flight over to Perth. And I'm sitting on the plane and I'm like, oh my God, like, I just can't do this. What am I at? Like, what am I at? I was like borderline in tears now. And next thing, this girl just comes up and is like, Leeanne. I was like, what? And it was Emma Dempsey.
No way.
Hi, Emma, if you're listening. But I remember seeing her face, and it was just because it was somebody from home. And I was like, burst into tears. I was like, Emma, what am I at? She was like, oh my God, you'll be absolutely fine. You love
She
it.
was like, she was an air hostess at the time, wasn't she?
She was an air hostess for Emirates at the time, and she was like, oh my God, I'll put you into first class. I was like, oh my God, hell yeah. And she couldn't get me up to first class, but she brought me down all the goodies in a bag. She was so good.
Oh, she was on your plane as well, was she?
Yeah, she was working on the flight.
That's deadly.
So that kind of made me feel really comfortable. I remember, I'll always remember her for that. And I got off the plane, and honestly, I never had a day of homesickness. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Where did you go first?
I went to Perth.
And Perth is what, the opposite side of Sydney, is it?
Yes, Perth is the most isolated city in the world, actually.
Because it took me a while to realise, like, the city, because Stephen Mitchell went to Sydney, and then I think someone else is in Perth. I'm like, oh, do you ever meet up with Stephen? He's like, no, that's the whole world away.
It's like people that say, oh, I'm living in Melbourne, do you want to meet up? I'm in Brisbane. Sure, like it's a 4 or 5 hour flight away. And it's funny because people think, oh, when you're in Australia, you all meet up with everybody. It's so expensive to fly like from one city to another. You're talking $500-$600 a ticket. Like, it's big money. But now I suppose you're earning big money as well. But no, I was in Perth, and what I loved about Perth is that the city centre itself is very small. So it's like on a grid system, and there's like, now it's probably all different now, but 4 like parallel streets is like the equivalent of O'Connell Street, Henry Street, whatever. You know what I mean? So I think I went in one day to meet Sophie, and by the end of the day, I had kind of nearly mastered the inner city centre. And oh my God, the heat, like it was just fab. It was amazing. And the nightlife was brilliant, and everybody, you know, I suppose after the recession as well, everybody in Australia was in great form because they had money. You know what I mean? So it was never like, you know, at home and it'd be, oh God, sure, it's just doom and gloom and the whole lot. That was all gone. It was great.
And do you think Perth was a better city to go at the starting than if you were in one of the bigger cities? Like,
well, I suppose for me, like as somebody who, I don't particularly like Dublin City. Like, I live in Cork, and I prefer Cork City to Dublin City because it's smaller. Yeah. So Perth is lovely. I think if I was to have stayed in Australia, I would have had a family in Perth. Perth's a lovely place to have a family. You know, it's kind of like you could live 20 minutes outside of Perth City and be country, but still be so close to the city. Do you know what I mean?
And how long were you there in Perth?
2.5 years. 2.5 years.
But you had to go away from there to work.
I did. I worked. So I did a load of jobs when I got there. I did loads of different jobs. For the first 12 months, I didn't nurse at all. And I'm really happy I did that because, like, I suppose I'll be nursing now for the rest of my life. So it's nice that I had that year that I didn't. Yeah. So the first job I got, Jesus, what was the first job? I worked in a pub over there called what was the name of the pub? The Carnile. And it was an Irish bar, but there was 2 parts to the bar. So one was like an Aussie bar and one was an Irish bar. And like, from the pub, like I worked in the pub for years. So when I went in and got the job, I was like, try to run a pub with my eyes closed. It's so different. Like,
what's
I remember
different
going in,
because everything's on the wrong side, like, because it's backwards.
It's all upside down.
No,
I knew it.
That's fine. Oh, that's fine. But like how can I explain this? So like the Aussies, they'd be up at the bar, and you know the way I think of the Judge years ago, or McCormick's years ago, and you have like the couple of owl lads that like their pints and they watch the race and then they tip away home then after their 5 or 6 pints. So it's the same out in Australia, but when a customer wants another pint, they like turn the glass on the side. I think I can remember that right properly. They turn the glass on the side. So like, I remember going in and seeing all these glasses on the side, and I picked them up and put them into the dishwasher. I was like, they're gone. Like, you know, it was just different. It was really different. And I wouldn't have said I really liked it over there, to be honest. Now, the Aussie part of the bar that I worked in, I didn't like, but when I got into the Irish part of the bar, I think the following weekend, so they don't give you the job on the spot. They bring you in for a trial. Yeah. And if you're any good, then they'll bring you back. It's a bit like the carpentry, like, oh, I work for you this week, but I've nothing for you next week kind of thing. Yeah. So the following week I got brought back into the Irish part of the bar, and sure, like, it was like being at home. It was lovely. But so I did that for a little while, and then I had to do the regional work. You know, the way you have to do, if you want your second, so I went on a working holiday visa. So if you wanted a second year visa, you had to go and do regional works like farm work. You'd hear of people going picking strawberries and doing all that
But
kind of
is
thing.
that only if you wanted to go stay a second year? Like
only if you want to stay for the second year, yeah. Now, there's other avenues that sure would be here all day. Like, you can go and get sponsored straight away. But you're like, I didn't think I was even going to stay the year. So I got on to Niamh Quinn because Niamh was working in a hay plant is effectively what it was. And she was like, oh, have you any? She was like, oh, the farmer is going to ring you. I'll get you in, she said. And the money was good. Like, it was $900 a week, I think. Now, it was Monday to Friday, 8 to 8. Or no, 6 to 6. And it was like 3 hours outside of Perth City. So like outback now, like red dirt on the roads, kangaroos, wild, like it was mental. But Niamh was like, the farmer's going to ring you and you just have to let on that you grew up on a farm. And I was going, no bother. So hilarious. Like, the most farm I ever would have seen would have been Bertie's house. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, Boards Mill, Beliver, like that would have been the sticks in my, like, back then. So the farmer rang me, and I remember he was like, so what kind of farm have you got at home? And I was like, oh, cows. Cows and stuff.
Cows, moo-moos.
And so I'd say he knew right well. But anyway, gave me the job.
Fake it till you make it.
Absolutely. And I didn't even know what my job was going to be up there. So when I got up there, they were like, yeah, you're going to be working in the bagging shed. And I was like, okay. And like, I had my fake tan on, my gel nails. Like, I say they saw me coming and were like, this idiot. But anyway, it was actually, lads, I'm not joking you, it's the hardest job I ever worked in my life. Honest to God. I was never so fit. Like,
and you say bagging. What are you bagging? What are you doing?
So basically, it's bag and feed for cattle. Okay. So it was like a conveyor belt. And you had, like, effectively, the big coal bags, the big white 40 kg coal bags. So you got one of them, you lifted it up into this hopper thing, pressed the lever, they'd like let the pellets fall into the bag. Then you'd bring it along a conveyor belt and like go through a sewing machine to sew the bag.
Stitch it. Oh yeah.
And then you'd have to lift it onto like a conveyor belt up onto pallets, and you'd have to stack the pallets 60 high, and they wanted 60 pallets a day. Like,
jeez, you'd have shoulders like
you'd
Popeye.
Be dead. Yeah. So I earned every penny in there, but it was great crack, like the heat up there. But we had some crack with like the local Aussies, and sure, I met Alan up there, so I was very lucky. And
well then, all worth it.
All worth it.
Just so, who's Alan? Just for
Alan is I suppose he's still my fiance because COVID screwed the wedding. So we skipped the wedding and had the baby instead.
The apple of your eye.
Yeah, right.
The apple of my eye.
Skip step 2 and 3.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, up there for, I think we had to do 3 months, but then it was coming to Christmas. So I think I ended up doing 4.5 months up there just to get a bit of money together. And then we came home back to the city, and sure, then like when you got back to the city, she thought this was great because like you've been living derelict for a couple of months. So all the money I had saved, I blew in about 2 weekends in the casino in Perth. And I got a job then up on the mines. So I went to the mines.
I heard that's big money now.
Come here till I tell you.
I heard some stories by it.
Real money.
Yeah.
But
you obviously weren't driving a machine though.
But sure, I was cleaning bedrooms and I was making $3,000 a week. $3,000 a week.
Oh, Jesus Christ. What are we doing here, Bertie?
When I think about it. But you know something? That too was actually an equally very difficult job. Like, do you know the way, like...
Oh, yeah, I'd cry into me $50 notes, yeah.
I remember before I went to Australia and in the pub, I was working at the pub, and people would be like, oh, such a one is out in the mines, and fucking great life that they have and the whole lot. And I'm like, it's actually a really hard life that they have, because you go up there with the mindset of, I'm going to stick this out until I get X amount of money. And I didn't do that. I was like, I'll go up there now for as long as I can stick it. So I think I did 4 or 5 months.
And was it the isolation, boredom, the job, the long hours? All the above?
So the I found it very isolating because, like, obviously there was 3 girls on the whole site, and we were cleaners. Well, one of the girls was in the kitchen, but I was a cleaner. And so because of the heat up there, I was in the Pilbara, so it would get up to like 56, 57 degrees. So we started work at like 4:30 in the morning, because like it would be, you could have maybe 50, 60 bedrooms to clean.
And are these all like porter cabin bedrooms for the workers?
Porter cabins, yeah. Yeah, but like I remember being like, well, cleaning bedrooms, how hard can it be? And like, I'm not joking you, they had this like take 5, you know, the safety steps, the 5 steps, and they'd have like auditors coming around making sure you made the beds properly, and it was insane. And then like you wouldn't get called back on the next swing if your bedrooms weren't like passing all the whatever they had to pass or whatever. But yeah, I did a couple of swings up there. Money was very good. Oh my God, the longest 2 weeks of my life every time. Like, you know, 12-hour days, and like 12-hour days in that heat. You'd be finished in the evening, you'd get a shower, you'd literally get out of the shower and you'd want another shower, get something to eat, and you'd be so tired you'd be in bed at 6 o'clock. Like, so it was literally like go up, put the head down, do the 14 days and then come home. And so I'd come home then to Perth for the week off. But you're like, it'll take you 4 days to recover after, because it's 14 days, like no day off. So 14 days of 12 hours, you know, and like I'd be used to 12 hours and nights and everything at home. But
I did hear about the long hours. You wouldn't even get to spend the money that you're having, no matter if
you wouldn't even get to, like, there's lads over there. Like, it was actually very funny. The my port cabin where I slept, outside it there was an Aboriginal fella called Charlie. He was lovely, actually. And you'd meet, that's the one thing about Australia that was lovely. You'd meet the most amazing people. Like, when did you ever think you'd be in the Pilbara having a pint with like an Aboriginal man who like fed off the land for years and like had all these amazing stories? But there was a guy, I can't remember his name, I think it was Craig or something, but man, like in his late 50s. And he was saying, you know, the mines is great, but like the Aussies get so addicted to it. Like, he was up there 30 odd years, 3 failed marriages, kids he doesn't see, houses all over Perth, and is never home to be in them. So he's loads of money, but like, you know, I remember thinking you couldn't do it long term. It's very, very hard on couples now.
And he was doing 30 years, like
30 odd years.
That is tough going doing that, like.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's hard oil work, you know, and it's so hot. Oh my God, it's so hot. And you're in like long sleeved, like shirts, long sleeve pants, steel toe cap, boots.
And like those Aussies would be so used to that heat, like.
Yeah, and sure, come here, like I burn in 18 degrees heat and fucking at the Trim Haymaking Festival. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just... So I did that then, and then when I came back then I got sensible and I got a nursing job, and I worked there then until I came home. Yeah.
And what's the difference between the nursing jobs there and the nursing jobs here, just for...
Jesus, sure.
Where do you start?
Their world.
Do the Aussies have like the same organs and same blood and all that kind of stuff, or are they different?
Would you believe it? Surprisingly, it's the same, John.
It's the same kind of stuff inside.
Yeah, same blood. Right. Yeah, same anatomy and everything. It's mad.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was there ever a point though that you thought like, when you got the nursing job there, that you'd stay? Like,
up until about 2 weeks before we booked our flights to come home, I was never coming home. Like, I loved it. And I remember the day that me and Alan were driving to the airport. We both said, we were in the back of a taxi, and we were both like, what in the name of God are we doing? Coming home.
Why were you coming home?
So nervous. I suppose the previous Christmas, Mum and Sean came out to me on a holiday, and we gave them like for Christmas, and Sean, we still had Santi and stuff, and we had a lovely Christmas that year. And so I had been home once in the time, and I found it easier to leave my family than for my family to leave me. So when they went to the airport in Perth and left where I was living, I was like, oh my God, like this is very hard.
Yeah.
So, and then I suppose we were thinking about like family of our own, and I just, now I'm living in Cork, so I might as well be in Australia because I don't get home as much.
Yeah, we don't get to see you. I think I've seen you more when you're in Australia.
I know, you probably did. But at the same time, I just...
But like, if like that, if things happen, and like obviously you've the little lad now, I mean, if that was in Australia, your mum wouldn't have seen him yet, probably.
This is it, like, you know, look, there's pros and cons to both. Like, I can understand why people never come home from Australia. It's a fantastic quality of life. And like, from a nursing point of view, nursing is, you know, you don't enter nursing for good money, like, but I wouldn't say the nursing money in Australia is amazing. I'd say it's very fair for the work that nurses do. And I think that they're well respected. Whereas I feel like in Ireland, you know, yes, we're very well respected as a profession amongst like the Irish people, but like our government don't recognise it, and you know, we're not paid, I don't think, fairly.
Yeah.
So you know, there's lots of benefits to Australian life, and it's just a pity it's so far. I often say I'd go back. Like, I would never rule out not going back. I loved it, but yeah, I suppose everything works out for a reason. We ended up going home, and that was it.
You ended up doing a master's then, to what you're doing now.
I did a postgraduate first. So I did a postgraduate in children's nursing. So remember I was saying I did disability nursing first.
Yeah.
So when I was in Australia, I worked predominantly with children. And I just absolutely loved it. And I remember coming home thinking, oh my God, like I'd never felt like that in any job that I'd had in Ireland. So I went and applied for paediatric nursing in Crumlin, and I did a higher diploma up there. So I went to Crumlin for the year, did that. And I'm now working with babies in an acute hospital. So I work in Cork University Hospital, and I love it.
But doesn't that go to show you though that like you were saying, like, and we probably all have the same thing, that we didn't particularly like school and didn't really have any.
Look at how long it took me to get to where I wanted to be. Absolutely, yeah.
So there's lots of,
but it just goes to show you that there's a back door into everything.
Well, that's it. And would this have been the end game for you all along where you are, or did that change as you moved along? Like,
it changed, I think. Yeah, it changed an awful lot. Like I wouldn't have ruled out leaving nursing a couple of years ago. Like I was miserable in it, but I love my job now. Now it comes with its challenges. Like, it's a tough out gig. I'm on maternity leave at the moment, and I'm very lucky because I worked in the first lockdown, but I've been off for this wave, thank God. But yeah, look, come here, is there such a thing as a perfect job? I suppose I'm very lucky that, like, I look after cute little babies and their lovely families. Like, I'm very privileged in the job that I'm in, but equally the nights, the long days, I'm already worried about having to work Christmas Day next year when he'll only be one. You know, they're things that, like, if I was in a Monday to Friday job, it wouldn't impact me as much, you know?
But getting into the nursing, Leeanne, like, did you kind of get into nursing because you felt like you wanted to help people, or was it the community that you liked, and the money, not the money, but the community and that job and that way of life? Or did you I want to save people, I want to save lives, like all this kind of stuff? Or what way did you get into it?
The acute sickness and stuff that I actually, not that I love people being sick, but like I love being in the height of all of that.
Yeah.
That came much later. It would have been, to be honest with you, I think, and me and Mum have actually spoken about this loads because she's nursing as well. And before Mum was nursing, she had the pub. And I do think the pub trade, like, geared me for wanting to be in the midst of working with people. And, you know, there's a lot of similarities, believe it or not, between publicans and nurses, because, you know, when you're behind a bar, you're meeting people sometimes at a very vulnerable time in their lives, and you're hearing their stories. Yeah. And nursing is very like that as well. You're meeting people when they're very vulnerable and they're low and they need a bit of support. And I suppose I'd like to think that I'm a good listener, and I love the crack. I'll tell you something, if you have one nurse friend, you have a friend for life. Nurses they make the best friends. You know, and there's a humour that no other people get. Yeah.
These are the same with firemen as well. Like, these are a different breed that you can deal with really horrific scenarios. Yeah, no problem. You'll deal with them, and you can make any situation calmer.
I wouldn't say no problem, but you deal with it, and then you have to be able to laugh. Like, my job can be very sad. You know, so you have to be able to. A woman actually at one of my lectures, I remember, told me years ago that when you've had a bad day at work in the hospital, be it with children or adults, whatever, and you get into the car on the way home, and like, I've often gotten into the car and cried after a long day over something really sad that's happened or whatever. And she said, you need to pick a point in the road where you stop and you just go back to normal life, because it's very easy in my job to take all of other people's problems and worries home to your own door. And I've gotten better at managing that as I've gotten older. So just older, you know,
parking different issues and stuff, just to make sure you're not bringing it home. That must be very hard, though.
Well, yeah, because you see, you have to get up then the next day and go back and face it all again, you know. But I have to say, like, would I recommend nursing to younger people now? Like, it's a tough job. Like, you know, I would recommend it in the sense that I get great things out of it. Like, I get I'm very proud to say that I'm a nurse. There's a respect, I think, that comes with the nursing profession, and it's nice to have that.
Yeah.
And the friends and the camaraderie and all of that. But from a financial point of view, or like from, you know, it's a tough old gig, and they you know, the nurses, there's nurses that work an awful lot harder than me in ICUs and all those other places, but it's the only good thing is it's anywhere around the world. It is, you can go anywhere with it.
It is crazy that you guys have to fight for payment or fight for fair wages, because when you think of a nurse, like, you just think ultimate respect first off. It's like, well,
any healthcare worker. Any healthcare worker. I tell you, when I worked in St. Joseph's, right, I was a multitask attendant. So you'd go in on a Saturday and you could be in the kitchen making the porridge. You could be collecting the delf. You could be caring, as in like helping the nurse, or you could be mopping the floors. And like, each one of like all the jobs in healthcare, whether you're the porter, the receptionist, the cleaner, the kitchen staff, they should all be so respected. It's not just the nurses, and that annoys a lot of nurses.
Good point.
Actually,
Good point.
It's a full team, like the paramedics, the doctors, some of the junior doctors, they get very poor pay. Some of the care assistants, the work they have to do, the cleaners and the job, especially with COVID and all the infection control. Like, it's a tough old gig.
Going in there every day.
I just think it's a pity that it's not seen. And, I just think the government coming out and clapping for you, like, while the clapping was lovely, I think people are sick of that now, And,
they're talking about this bank holiday, but as someone pointed out, that nurses usually work a bank holiday anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm just laughing because this storm is tomorrow, and a friend of mine is working, and she got a text to say, come in at 6 to let the night staff go home safely. She's like, anywhere else is saying, Tesco have it advertised there, give her staff the day off tomorrow because of the storm. Like, you just wouldn't write it, Yeah. But look, there's no such thing as the perfect profession. But I do love it, and I couldn't see myself doing anything else really.
Do you think how hard it is at the start puts a lot of people off though? Because it is a hard slog when you're a student nurse.
Come here, sure. Do you know my brother? I was saying that he started his apprenticeship now, and he's on pittance, like minimum, less than minimum wage, I'd say. But like, I worked first, second, third year, not €1. They get no money. The student nurses don't get paid until their fourth year. And when they go into their fourth year, they get if they get 250 quid a week. And like, they work the same. They take on the same caseload as the staff nurse because the HSE is so understaffed. So that's like really wrong. It's really, really wrong, I think, that you're expecting people to come in. Like in the middle of COVID, they were expecting students to go in that don't get paid. Put their lives at risk and their families at risk for no money.
But does that make it harder for them to learn on the job then? Because obviously they probably have to have a job outside of that in order to be able to.
This is it. So a lot of the girls, no more than me, sure, I hit St. Joseph's. I would have been lost without it, But look, I suppose the only thing now that I find a bit, well, in my job anyway, that we'd have a lot of students coming on that would have done a really good leaving cert, like I'm talking 550, huge points. The points for nursing are actually very, very high at the moment. Like when I did nursing, I think the points for my course were like 260 points. They weren't big at all. Now I think nursing in DCU is like 540, huge points.
But couldn't there be like fantastic nurses that, would be fantastic nurses, but not great in school?
But this is my point, because I actually had a student a couple of years ago, and she was actually a very nice girl, but Jesus, she wasn't made for nursing at all. And, she had gotten 490 or 500 points, huge points in her leaving cert. And like, she knew all the lingo, so she could come to me and tell me, oh, these bloods now are a bit off, or such a thing is going on. But like, wouldn't be able to go into the patient and ask them, do they want a cup of tea and slice of toast? Or like, wouldn't have the cop to go in and open a window and strip a bed. Do you know what I mean? And like, I just think that nursing is an awful lot more than giving out meds. And, you have to be able to, I think sometimes you have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the vulnerable person, because we all have loved ones. And like, if any of them were sick, what would you know what I mean? I'm a nurse, and like, and I'm a baby nurse. And Jesus, if my little fella was sick, sure, I wouldn't be able to cope at all.
Yeah, that's a tough job you're in. It's babies. It's babies. It's
yeah.
I think you're kind of putting the two of us to shame a little bit with your job, to be honest.
Like, I went into my job the other day, and like, there was a load of leaves that blew in through the front door when the wind blew it in. I had to pick all those leaves up. I was like 10 minutes. Open disclosure, I'm on maternity leave, so I'm not that great. I'm sitting at home very cozy. Until you're still working hard on the boat. I think
it's actually full disclosure, not open disclosure. But
in between, going back on like jobs and stuff like that, did you get to have some hobbies in between? Yeah,
me.
Like, both three of us, I suppose. Like, obviously we grew up working hard, but did we have hobbies on the side?
I played basketball in school. I loved it.
Yeah.
But I never kept it up when I got to college, because the hours for nursing didn't like comply. But I've recently, pre-COVID, a couple of the girls that I work with on the ward, we went to, there's like a women's basketball training night, Tuesday and Thursday nights in the city.
Like,
and we started it pre-COVID. And lads, it's so funny, like the first night we went, it was like me and three of the girls were all in our 30s. And we were like, we were really good, like, at basketball in school. And I was like, oh yeah, like I was on the bus, like up to Carrick Cross and everything for games. Like, I was brilliant. And we rock up anyway with the sweaty Betty pants on us, raring to go. And these women are like nearly, like some of them are in their 60s. the three of us needed like a 2-litre bottle of water and an inhaler after 10 minutes. And the older ladies were absolutely bombing it around the court. I suppose life gets busy and I didn't prioritise keeping it up, but I should have, and hopefully when lockdowns and all that ease, I'll go back to a bit of indoor basketball maybe on a Tuesday night. Yeah. Yeah, what about you?
That's something that the lockdown has probably shown a lot of people too, that you need that kind of thing. That's not just all about working.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One thing that Bertie was really good at when he was growing up was sports, and you were obviously on football teams, Bertie. That's one thing I didn't do. I was never on a football team or never.
You were never sporty. Were you sporty?
I was never sporty. No, I joined the Reserve Defence Forces when I was 16.
That's right. I remember
that.
So
that kind of kept me going. Because when you guys were going out doing sports, Bertie, I was like up in the Wicklow Mountains in a tent with like rubbing 2 sticks together.
Yeah, I seen you a couple of times.
My hobby.
I seen you a couple of times playing five-side, John. Yeah, you wouldn't have had the skill for it anyway.
John, why didn't you go into the army?
I think
it was. About it?
No, I didn't like it. I liked the Reserve Defence Forces, but I liked being able to go home and go on to a normal life.
So it's more a hobby, like the hobby.
Reserve Defence Forces. If any young lad now is listening, honestly, join it because it turns you into like a different chap in terms of you go through stuff like it. We used to go down. We did the 4 peaks. We used to climb mountains with weapons, and we did training on weapons. But there was weekends where you'd head off, and you'd do a helicopter course. So let's say we'd go up to Baldonnel, we'd get into a helicopter, fly down to Kerry, do a night orientation up into the mountain on a Saturday night with maps and compass, and then you get picked up at around 6 a.m. the next morning by helicopter, and then you fly to Dublin that morning. And there was times where Sunday night I got home at 9 o'clock, and then at 4:30 I was in Soup while you're packing bananas.
Go back up again, yeah.
And there was lads saying, "Oh man, I was in the Dangles the other night. I was pissed. Yeah, had a great night. What did you do the weekend?" I'd be like, "I went to Kerry. Went on a helicopter mission up to the Kerry to the ground."
Yeah.
I almost didn't want to say because it was just too much to explain. So that it was really enjoyable doing that as a hobby on the side. So I didn't really do games and sports and stuff like that, where I wish I did. But I was never a very sportive person.
But everybody finds their own little niche thing to do. But as you said, it's important to have something at least anyway.
You need something on the side.
And I think when you get older, you can take up new things. Do you know?
Well, me and Johnny...
It's less enthusiastic, though.
Me and Johnny tried a lot of things. It never really took.
Tried and failed. Lots of
I know. God
That's
loves
why
to
I took up gin. I'm actually an alcoholic and I blog about gin just to hide my alcoholism.
Come here. I know this can't turn into like a gin podcast because we did the gin one already. You did the gin one already. But John, the gin, I've tasted it so many times. I've tried them all. What are you drinking?
Cork gin, though? You're probably...
No, I'm not.
You're
that
having
bad.
It wrong.
You know, the Bombay, the Hendrix, they just don't taste nice. They taste like Disprin.
Oh my God! Like, you went straight in there.
My battery's dying in a laptop. What's going on
Is
here?
Is the podcast over?
I'm going to a tunnel.
Exit the podcast. Exit.
We're just going to throw Tully out of the Zoom meeting here now.
So basically, that's John's cue to like send me down a really nice bottle of gin.
You're drinking it wrong, Leeanne. You're drinking it wrong. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to come down to Cork and make you a gin tonic.
You're very welcome. Bring the gin.
But do you like vodka?
No, not really. No, to be honest, I'm a bottle of beer.
If you don't like vodka, then the gin is technically vodka, easy.
The 16-year-old
I like
Tully
a pink gin. A pink gin is all right, but that's because I can't taste the gin in it.
If that's not really gin. Yeah,
I know.
It's not gin, like.
I know. When you said that in the podcast, I was like, oh, God.
Yeah. See, it's full of sugar. So you like sugary drinks, basically.
Love the sugary drinks, yeah.
Yeah. God can't beat the days of Wicked and Smirnoff Ice and Bacardi Breezers. Oh, Jesus, can't beat them.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
Can't beat them.
Good days.
Fat frogs and going out. That's another podcast altogether, I think.
Oh God.
Yeah, drinks of the past.
Yeah, well, maybe that could
My
be
waddy is yours,
episode. Bert. I think we kind of went off topic there just a little bit, but as the nature is of the podcast for waffling, but I think we might have to get Tully back on again because we haven't really touched on all.
I think we've only touched.
I think we've heard enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've just scratched the surface there, John, I think.
Yeah, I think there's just a surface scratch, yeah.
No, I may start charging you now, lads.
It's like we just seen the trailer for the movie.
You'd want to see my setup here. I have baby monitor one side of me, and I'm just praying to God baby doesn't wake. But no,
is the Baba in bed?
Nice. Baba's in bed, well behaved.
stuff. My two are still downstairs. I hear them actually banging walls as we speak. I don't know if you can hear it in the mic.
That's fab. And so what's your next podcast going to be?
We're going to have another guest around episode 10, and that's like nights out and stuff like that. And then maybe if we have another subject in around maybe episode 12 or 13, maybe you'd like to hop on there. Maybe over Christmas, we might get you for episode 8 or 9.
Oh gosh, okay. Well, see how this goes. Your podcast was totally flop now after my appearance on it tonight. We could have like 3 followers.
Every nurse in Ireland is going to be listening to you.
Oh God, please God. Well, if they are, they're amazing and they need to be paid better.
Well, in fairness, we probably should have went fully with the nurse podcast rather than the jobs podcast, because I think that could have been a whole
podcast actually dedicated to nurses. And the healthcare staff, dedicated to healthcare staff.
Yeah, especially for everybody who's thinking about going that direction too, just to see what paths there are to go and stuff like that, like, you know.
Yeah, put your career guidance. I know. Maybe that's what I should have done, a career guidance counsellor. I think I would have been good at that.
Oh yeah, maybe,
that'd be good.
And just to round it off there, John, where have you ended up working? Like, what are you doing now? You're managing director, CEO.
I'm still in retail. I'll never leave retail. I think that's what's in my blood now, retail stuff. So managing a shop at the minute. We do outdoor furniture and stuff. So we had quite a busy year, actually. Everybody was stuck at home in their gardens.
Out in their gardens.
I sold garden stuff. So it kept me busy. We had a really busy year. What about you, Bert? What did you end up doing after your civil engineer's course?
Well, I suppose currently on the new venture, and that's probably going to be one of the episodes on the podcast, is about the sheep, I guess.
Yeah, I'm dying to talk about sheep. Bertie, you've so much stuff about sheep that you don't find funny. I find it hilarious.
So maybe
I went in to Bertie's driveway there once, and there was a sheep on a ram. Was it a ram, Bert?
Oh, that's Gandalf, yeah.
Yeah, Gandalf was in the field. And I said, "What's Gandalf doing there?" And Bertie just normally said that he's in there to ride the rest of the sheep. So I found it quite interesting. I was like, "There's one guy going in there to ride all them 19 sheep." And Bertie's like, "Yeah."
He'd be wrecked.
We're gonna have to talk about that in the podcast.
That'll be another one. But I think it's definitely the way forward once the Zoom actually works and the audio comes across good, because I think we had a slight little microphone malfunction last week with John's microphone, I think.
Yeah.
What wasn't the best.
Just turn their volume up to like 100.
You're going to have them.
Yeah. Well, we're not exactly running a professional studio either, so we're going all right. We're getting nice feedback, and there's a good few people still messaging us about different episodes and stuff like that. So,
good.
And as John said at the start, then as well, that we get to hang out then obviously as well.
It's nice. And podcasts have become a thing. Like I prefer listening to a podcast on a walk now than I do listening to music.
Yeah, I listen to podcasts, and I like podcasts that you learn something on.
Yeah.
You know.
Let's not advertise any other podcast, because this is the only podcast
all
you
the
should
rest
be listening
of them
to.
are crap.
I learned a lot on the John Bernard podcast. I learned a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Waffle Hour. Brilliant.
Oh, excellent. Well, I was just going to sign off there, actually, because we are up to the hour. So,
perfect.
That's fab. Thanks for having me.
Leeanne, it was great to have you.
Absolute pleasure.
It's great even to meet up again, because this is a good excuse. The podcast is a great excuse to meet up.
When's the last time 3 of us were in a room drinking tea and eating biscuits together?
Well, that was
years ago. Back when you were in Knightsbrook, I think.
Yeah, that was the beach house. Yeah, so
the beach house. God be with the days, Bertie, huh?
Yeah. But me and Ed are always saying we must get down to you someday.
I know, and you're welcome anytime. Absolutely. Hopefully now in the summertime and things.
I'm 2 visits up on you, Jenny.
In fairness, Bertie's doing great. I get a text like from Bertie, "Are you home in an hour?" I'm like, "I'm living in Cork." Bertie just rocks to the door, and he'll always bring a pie, which is funny because anytime I go out with Bertie, I get drunk and he's the pioneer, and he's also big into fitness, and yet he always feeds me cake. So it's a very.
You should never arrive to anybody's house empty-handed, Leeanne. You should know
that's true. That is very true.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, lovely to see.
Yep. We may as well all stay here just while I sign off. So you have been listening to John Bernard Waffle Hour on Waffle Wednesdays with our guest,
thanks all,
Leeanne Tully. So J-Dog, sign off. Leeanne, sign off.
See you guys.
Bye.
See you next week.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.